Welcome back to Investing Talk podcast. You know, sometimes you find a company that really makes you scratch your head, and today's subject is one of those. We're going to be talking about Greenpro Capital, trading on the Nasdaq Q under the ticker GRNQ.
Yeah, what's interesting here is this, Greenpro's stock is on a tear right now, hitting a 52-week high of $1.88 on January 10th. That's a huge 48% jump in just 6 months. But here's the thing. When you look at their recent earnings reports, it's a different story. They're actually struggling financially.
Oh, really? So it's kind of like investors are cheering while the company's financials are telling a different story.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's driving all this enthusiasm around Greenpro? What do you think?
Well, there are a few key things that are really grabbing investors' attention. First, there's that 52-week high. Hitting that milestone, it's a big deal. It attracts attention and gets people talking.
I see. So it's like setting up a signal flare.
Exactly. It's like, hey, look at me, I'm doing great. Now, beyond just the hype, Greenpro also recently regained compliance with Nasdaq Q's minimum bid price requirement. That's crucial because if they hadn't, they could have been delisted.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's a sign of stability, Shows they're committed to staying in the game.
Right. Investors need that reassurance, especially when a company's financials are a little shaky.
Absolutely. So that's a really positive sign.
Okay, so we've got the 52-week high, we've got the compliance. What else?
They also successfully completed their annual meeting of stockholders. So they elected directors, ratified their accounting firm, basically checked all the boxes in terms of good corporate governance.
Right.
And that can go a long way in building investor confidence.
So it's not just about the numbers, it's about leadership transparency.
Exactly. Now, here's where things get really interesting. Greenpro is stepping into the world of blockchain technology and ESG investing, two of the hottest trends right now.
Okay, I like it.
They recently listed KS Digital's KSGEMS token on their own Shariah-compliant ESG digital asset exchange called GreenX.
Oh, wow. So they're not just riding a trend, they're positioning themselves at the forefront.
Exactly. And with the growing interest in Shariah-compliant investments globally, this is a smart move.
Absolutely. So they're tapping into a really specific niche.
Yeah. And speaking of global, Greenpro is actually on the verge of signing a memorandum of understanding with two major players, Sharia Digital Technologies in Dubai and PT Digital Syariah Technology in Indonesia. This could significantly expand their footprint in the Shariah-compliant digital asset market.
Wow, they're thinking big. That's a big move.
Right. And this is where we start to see why investors might be overlooking those immediate financial challenges. Greenpro is weaving a compelling narrative of growth potential and strategic vision. They're not just surviving, they're positioning themselves for the future.
So even with negative EBITDA, and by the way, for our listeners who might not be familiar with that term, EBITDA stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. So it's basically a measure of a company's operating profitability. So even with negative EBITDA and some cash burn issues, investors are buying into Greenpro's vision.
Yeah, I think so. It's almost like they're saying, we believe in where you're going, even if the road's a little bumpy right now.
Right. It's a bit on the future.
It is. And it's a classic case of buy the rumor, sell the news. Investors are betting on the potential of these initiatives to pay off big time down the line.
So it's a gamble, but potentially a very lucrative one if Greenpro can execute their strategy effectively.
Exactly.
But are there any red flags investors should be aware of? Anything that stands out?
Well, like any investment, there's always risk involved. It's crucial to look at both sides of the coin, the positive momentum and the underlying financial realities.
Right. So a healthy dose of cautious optimism is always a good thing.
Always a good thing.
Now, I understand we have some technical indicators to look at. Those can provide more insight into market sentiment, right?
Absolutely. They can be like a window into the minds of investors. And in Greenpro's case, they're painting quite a mixed picture.
Oh, this is getting interesting. Let's dive into those technical signals after a quick word from our sponsors. All right, we're back and ready to decode some of those technical signals you mentioned. I'm always curious to see what those charts and indicators are telling us. Sometimes it feels like a secret language, but I know you can translate it for us.
I'll do my best. It's true, technical analysis can seem daunting, but it can offer really valuable insights into market sentiment and potential price movements. So let's start with the basics. As of January 10th, Greenpro is trading at $1.88. It's been fluctuating between a low of $1.42 and a high of $1.95 recently.
Okay, so there's definitely some volatility there.
Right. And the trading volume on January 10th was over 1,747,987 shares. That's a massive surge compared to its average volume of 53,311 shares.
That's a huge jump. So
Yep.
clearly people are paying attention to Greenpro.
Yeah, they're actively buying and selling.
Okay, so it's not just sitting idly by.
Exactly. Now let's look at the moving averages. These are essentially trend lines that smooth out price fluctuations over different time periods. And for Greenpro, the 10-day, 20-day, 50-day, and even the 200-day moving averages are all signaling buy right now.
So from a short-term and a long-term perspective, the moving averages suggest the stock is on an upward trajectory.
Yeah, you could say that.
That's pretty bullish, right?
It is, and there's always a but. In investing, we need to consider some other indicators that might be flashing a warning sign. One of those is the RSI, or Relative Strength Index. It's a momentum oscillator that measures the magnitude of recent price changes to evaluate overbought or oversold conditions. And Greenpro's RSI is currently sitting at 84.83.
Okay, break that down for me. What does an RSI of 84.83 actually tell us?
Generally, an RSI above 70 is considered overbought. So this means the stock has been rallying quite strongly, and it might be due for a pullback or a correction.
I see.
You know, it's like a rubber band being stretched too far. Eventually, it snaps back.
Right. So even with all those buy signals from the moving averages, this overbought condition is something investors should be cautious about.
Yeah, I would say so.
Is there anything else that supports this potential for a pullback? Are there any other indicators we should be looking at?
Yeah, there is. Another indicator called the stochastic oscillator, which also measures momentum and overbought-oversold conditions, is currently at 100.
Okay.
So this further reinforces the idea that Greenpro might be due for a correction.
So two indicators pointing in the same direction. That's not something to ignore. It seems like there's this tug of war going on, strong momentum versus potential for a pullback. What do the other indicators have to say? Can they help us make sense of this?
Let's see. The MACD, or Moving Average Convergence Divergence, is another momentum indicator. It's currently at 0.0945, and it remains above the signal line, which suggests continued bullish momentum.
Okay, so the MACD isn't sounding the alarm bells just yet.
Not yet.
It seems to support the idea that the upward trend might continue.
Right. But we can't ignore those overbought signals from the RSI and stochastic oscillator. And then there's the ADX, or Average Directional Index, which measures the strength of a trend regardless of whether it's up or down. Greenpro's ADX is currently 47.21, which is indicating a strong trend.
So the ADX is basically saying, hold on tight because this stock is moving and it could go either way.
Precisely. So we have this fascinating mix of bullish signals and overbought warnings. It really is a classic case of risk versus reward. And it's up to each investor to decide how much risk they're comfortable with.
Right. A balanced approach is always key. We've looked at the company's news, their financials, and now the technical signals, which definitely add another layer of complexity to the picture. But how does all of this fit into the broader market landscape? We can't just look at Greenpro in a vacuum, right?
You're absolutely right. The overall market sentiment plays a role. And currently, it's a bit uncertain, largely due to the Federal Reserve's interest rate policies.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about interest rates going up or down. It's hard to know what to expect. How does this uncertainty in the market impact a stock like Greenpro, especially with its inherent volatility?
Well, Greenpro has a beta of 1.6, which means it's more sensitive to market fluctuations than the average stock. If the market goes up, Greenpro is likely to climb even higher. But if the market takes a dip, Greenpro could fall even further.
So it's a higher risk, higher reward scenario.
Exactly.
Those with a strong stomach for volatility might see this as an opportunity, while others might want to wait for things to settle down a bit.
Exactly. And there's another factor to consider. Analysts are actually quite optimistic about earnings growth in 2025. They're projecting a potential 10% rise in the S&P 500.
Okay, that's encouraging. But how does that potential market upswing connect to Greenpro specifically?
Well, if the broader market performs well, that positive sentiment could spill over and benefit Greenpro. But there's a crucial caveat. Greenpro needs to address its own financial challenges and effectively execute its strategy. If they can do that, they could really ride that market wave to new heights.
So they have the potential to capitalize on this positive outlook, but it all hinges on their ability to deliver on their promises.
Exactly. That's the key takeaway here. Greenpro is at a crossroads. They have a compelling vision and are tapping into some exciting markets, but they also face these financial hurdles. It's a delicate balance.
This has been a really insightful analysis of Greenpro Capital Corp. We've covered a lot of ground, from those positive news developments to the mixed signals we're seeing in the technical indicators. But before we wrap up, I want to get your final thoughts. What's your overall assessment of this company, given everything we've discussed? So for those of us out there trying to make sense of Greenpro Capital, is this a company worth taking a gamble on? Or is it too risky given its financial issues?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And honestly, there's no simple answer. Greenpro is this really fascinating case study, a company trying to make its mark in this rapidly changing world. And on one hand, you see they're making bold moves, venturing into cutting-edge technologies and generating a lot of buzz.
Yeah, and that impressive 52-week high. That's hard to ignore.
Right. But on the other hand, we can't ignore the financial realities. They need to tackle that negative EBITDA, get a handle on their cash burn, and really prove that their strategic initiatives can actually translate into tangible financial results.
So it seems like they're walking this tightrope, trying to balance those big dreams with the practicalities of running a business. So how do you weigh those competing forces? What's the key takeaway for potential investors?
I think it boils down to this Greenpro has a compelling story, but it's still in the early chapters. They've captured the attention of investors with their vision, but now they need to prove they can execute it. And that's where the real challenge lies.
So you saying it's too early to tell if Greenpro will sink or swim?
In a way, yes. It's a situation that demands close attention. Watch how they manage their financials, how they implement those strategic initiatives, and whether they can maintain that market momentum. The answers to those questions will determine their ultimate success.
It sounds like Greenpro is a company to keep on your watch list, with the potential for big rewards, but also some significant risks to consider.
Exactly. And that's why it's so crucial to do your own research, understand your own risk tolerance, and make informed decisions that align with your investment goals.
This has been a really eye-opening look at Greenpro Capital, ticker symbol GRNQ. We've covered their recent developments, delved into those technical signals, and explored how the broader market might impact their trajectory.
It's been a pleasure breaking this down with you.
And as always, we want to hear from you, our listeners. What are your thoughts on Greenpro? Do you see them as a potential high flyer or a company to approach with caution? Head over to the comments section and share your perspective. We love hearing what you think. And if you found this analysis helpful, don't forget to subscribe to Investing Talk Podcast and share this episode with your fellow investors. Until next time, happy investing.